Hello again, this is John Adams, and this is part 4, sharpening your images using Smart Sharpen. Just keep in mind that almost all digital images need sharpening, but beware that these filters can introduce noise and should be used only in the final step of your creating a master image. The Smart Sharpen filter has additional features that are not available in the Unsharp Mask filter, and I highly suggest this method of sharpening your image. Please keep in mind that there are many other techniques for sharpening, such as using a high-pass filter, but I have found that the Smart Sharpen filter is as good, or if possibly even better, than some of the other techniques. So I highly suggest using Smart Sharpen. So to use the Smart Sharpen filter, I'm going back to where we left off when we used the Unsharp Mask. And you can see on my layer here, this is the Unsharp Mask filter here. So I'm going to rename this Unsharp Mask, which actually creates sharpness. But what we want to do is we're going to turn this off, and you can see just a slight difference. It's not a major difference, but I'm going to turn this off because on this tutorial I want to go ahead and use Smart Sharpen. So in order to do that, I want to make another duplicate image here. So I'm going to right click, click on duplicate layer, and I'm going to name this Smart Sharpen because that's the filter that we're going to use. Okay, then we want to go ahead and make this a smart object by right clicking on it, go to convert to smart object. You get this little icon there, and then we're going to go under filter up at the top of the menu, and we're going to go into sharpen, and we're going to go to Smart Sharpen. So our menu comes up, and I'll put this over here. We're running out of space a little bit. So I'm going to move my window over slightly. And then, yeah, it'll look a little bit better, have a little bit more space here. So hopefully you can see everything. We're always limited on our recording area. In the Smart Sharpen dialog box, we want to check on this little gear up in the top and make sure that this is not checked. We want that to be unchecked. So that would affect your image. So make sure that that is unchecked. On the preset menu, choose default. So we're going to go to the preset. We're going to choose default. So it goes into the default setting. We want to lower the reduce noise. So we're going to lower that down to around 5%. Let's type in 5. Okay. We also want to see, move into the preview area here and get into a specific spot that we want to be, so we can actually see. We'll do it the same as we did on the Unsharp Mask. Now we want to choose the amount, and in the amount, this is the strength of the sharpening, and increases the amount until you can see. We want to increase the amount until you can see a halo effect along the sharp edges. So we're going to increase this from 200. And you can see you have to go. Sometimes it takes a while for the computer to catch up. So I'm not seeing a lot. You can see before, click before and after. There's not a real huge amount on here, so I'm not seeing a lot of sharpening. So we want to make sure, let's take a look at the preview. I don't see anything in here. And we're going to increase that amount until we see halos, but I'm not seeing any halos on here because we have the radius set so low. So we're going to go ahead and set the radius, move it up. There we go. Now we're starting to see those halos. So you can see the halos in this image. and you're catching it on the edges. So we want to go to a certain point where we see those. My computer is having a little hard time catching up to this. We want to see some halos. So if we go down, there's a little bit further up. Okay, and then we want to make sure that this is set also where it says remove. You have other options in your Gaussian blur, lens blur, motion blur, but the best one that I found is the lens blur. So I highly suggest that we use that setting. We want to increase the noise. That value lessens the amount of the noise created by the sharpening. So if we get this too sharp, now I have this up at 500. I'll just leave it up there for now, and then we'll increase the radius a little bit more so we exaggerate this just a little bit. Okay, and that's probably a little bit too much. And then I'm going to increase the noise. So as I increase the noise, you'll see that it decreases the noise or the halo around the image. So if I click on here, that's before, that's after, or after I made these adjustments. So there is some sharpening in here, and if you hit the P key or if you uncheck this, you can see the before and after. It's taking a little time to catch up on here, but there we go. Now you can see it. So it's going a little slow. It's having a hard time with all the different filters on here, but this looks actually pretty good. So we can reduce this a little bit more possibly. Maybe just a little bit more. Okay. So now we want to expand the shadows and highlights. So by clicking on this arrow, we can expand that. Now, to set the preview area to an area of the image that shows shadows and well, midtones, and we have that in here. We have some midtones in here, and we have shadows. So that's set. And the shadow set its value between 10 and 25. So so we're going to set it to, I'll set it to 10. And let's just see where, if we see any difference on 25 here. That's quite a bit. Somewhere between, let's make it about 16. This controls how many neighboring pixels will be compared to each adjusted pixel. The higher the radius, the larger the area that Photoshop uses for comparison. So if we increase the radius, oops, we increase the amount, it will decrease that effect on the shadows. So let's go ahead and choose the fade amount. Well, we've already done that. And then we're going to use the tonal width value. And we're going to go ahead this controls the range of midtones that are affected by the fade amount. So that's more, that would be less. So sometimes this is really hard to see the difference on here of how this is affecting it. And then also change the radius, the amount of pixels that's being affected. So you can see, let's go ahead and turn this, that's click to see before, that's after. So you can see a little bit too much halo in here. So we're going to need to probably lower the amount of effect on this. So we'll go back on this in just a second. So we'll do the highlights. We'll do the same, the fade amount on the highlights. Increase that up to, they said up to 25. And then tonal width. Okay, let's see if that'll, let's see if we increase the tonal width. Let's see, before, after. It's getting a little bit too bright. So what we want to do is we want to increase the reduce noise on here and see if we can cut out some of this halo effect that's happening in here. So let's take a look at the preview. That's before, that's after. So it's really not that bad. If you look in here, you're getting some halo effect, so we may want to go a little bit lower on the radius, or we could decrease the amount. So I could decrease this slightly too. So now if we go, that's before, that's after, and that's got a nice effect to it. So we went ahead and set the amount of the sharpen, the amount, the radius, the reduce noise. We set those first, then we went to shadows. We set the fade amount somewhere between 5 and 25, so or 10 and 25, and then we increased the tonal width on that, and the radius is how many pixels that affects. So we did that for the shadows, and then we did that for the highlights, and then we went back and readjusted this. So get it as best you can, and if you have to go back and reset the highlights or radius, the fade amount, and the tonal width, do that until you get it to the way you want it. So we can take a look in here one more time. Look at this, click on preview. So that's without, and you can look in here, that's with. So if we move this away so I can see more of the image, I'll go ahead and use the P key. That's without. And then that is with. It takes a couple seconds for this to work. So it's going very slow. There we go. Now it's compensate. So it's very slow today. But you can see we have good detail on the little boy and the slider, on the hands, on his face, on his cap, even in the lettering. It looks nice and clean. Even down on his feet looks clear. The sand looks very clear. You know, if I scoot down on this, I'll move our window down slightly. You can see even his feet look nice and clear, which, you know, is not that important, but you know, you get the idea. So that's using Smart Sharpen, and I think that's going to be the end of our creating a master image tutorial. The only thing left to do, I'm going to go ahead and say OK. And what I want to do is I want to compare this when it resets here. I'm going to turn this off, and you can see that's where it was originally, and that's how this is using the unsharp mask, and it looks pretty good. But let's turn that off and then turn on the Smart Sharpen, and it's going to take a couple seconds for that to show up, and I think that's it. So I think this looks a lot better. It's a lot clearer, nicer image. So we're going to go ahead and use this. So when you're getting your image ready in the outline for the creating a master image, at the very bottom there is a section that says save as a PSD. So if you save it as a PSD, it saves all the layers and I can see all those. So when you submit it, I can take a look at it. So I can see exactly what you've done or what you haven't done in here. So if you go up to the file in the menu, go to file, save as, or save if you haven't saved this already. One of the things that students forget to do is that when they go up, when they're working, is they don't save these as much as possible. But if you go into the menu under save, it's the command key and S, and if you're on a Windows computer, it should be Control S. So if you've already saved this before, just go ahead and you can click save, or you can hit the command S, it'll save it. If you have not, make sure that you check up in the very top and make sure that you're working on a PSD. If you're not, then make sure that you go under File, Save As. And then if you go to save it, my menu is really huge here, so I will try to size it in a reasonable size that you can actually see it. Okay, and go ahead and save it as Photoshop, and it'll save the layer. So PSD is the Photoshop setting. There's all these other settings available, but Photoshop is the one that I need you to save it in, so I can reuse or look at all your layers. So I'm just replacing the one that was there. So if you already had one in there, it'll ask you if you want to replace it, and I went ahead and replaced the one that was already there. So I hope you've learned a lot from these tutorials, and please submit your files as soon as you can so I can take a look at them and review them and then get back with you. Okay, thank you.